One of the very cool things about what I do for a living is that I get to go to events that are in some ways history in the making. I get to watch the newsmakers as events unfold. I get to listen to them in their full context, hear their full speeches, hear their full statements, and then bring it to you. Now, normally we just bring you clips, snippets of what they have to say. We interpret the rest. Out of brevity, can't show you a full 20-minute speech all the time, but sometimes it's worth showing you the full speech or the full comments. We do that regularly. We've done that with cabinet ministers and questions that have been put to them lately. Now I want to bring you a speech, not the full speech, but a significant portion of it because it's important. Calgary's Mayor Nenshi is not a man that sees a lot of praise at somewhere like the rebel.media, but he came to my town today. The Mayor of Calgary came to my town, Ottawa, and he spoke at my city hall. He was the guest of Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Mayor Watson runs a Mayor's Breakfast series, brings in interesting speakers, gathers together a lot of community leaders to listen, and Nenshi is the latest guest speaker. Now, at a time when progressives in central and eastern Canada are speaking out against pipelines, against the oil industry, when in so many ways the oil industry has just become a boogeyman, Mayor Nenshi came to Ottawa and explained why it shouldn't be this way. Now, I'm not going to say that I agree with everything in his speech, but his speech is worth listening to because here is a progressive man, a man of the left, standing up and saying, this is why the oil industry is important, and not just to Calgary, not just to Alberta, but to the entire country. It's a defense of the industry based in principle, it's based in fact, and he's worth listening to. Here is Nenshi in his own words.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about nation-building infrastructure. And when I talk about nation-building infrastructure, we also need to talk about our energy sector. I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos a couple of weeks ago, and I heard the Prime Minister say that we need to be known not just for our resources, but also for our resourcefulness. I added 2 words in that to make it better, by the way. He doesn't mind. Because when we talk about resourcefulness, we must also talk about our history as a nation with resources. It was our resourcefulness that led to the development of Canadian energy through the oil sands. The oil sands, which, by the way, are an incredible asset and an incredible heritage for all Canadians. They're vraiment notre patrimoine. It was our resourcefulness. It was the resourcefulness of women and men across this country that led to innovative technologies that allowed the industry to develop previously uneconomic oil and gas reserves, resulting in prosperity for every single Canadian. Our economic reality has changed. Our emphasis on environmental stewardship has exactly appropriately become more important. But we have to remember something, and it's important for us to remember that across this nation, and that is that developing our resources, notre patrimoine, in a responsible and sustainable manner is not an attack on the energy industry. It's about government and industry working together to respond to opportunity and to respond to changing expectations from people around the world as relates to the environment. Likewise, to have a thoughtful conversation on the importance of our energy industry is not to be a cheerleader for climate change. Rather than an inflammatory conversation pitting energy advocates against environmental advocates, we need to work together as a community, as a nation, to get this right. And this is particularly important given our current circumstances as we talk about market access. I cannot make this more clear. Market access is not about Alberta. It is not an Alberta issue. It is a Canadian issue. And every single one of us in this nation needs to care about this. We can't control the world price of oil. Many people in Alberta seem to think Premier Notley sets it every morning. She doesn't. It's the Prime Minister who does that. It sure ain't the mayors. But there is a lot under our control. There is a lot under our control. And in particular, we have the power in our own hands as Canadians to reduce the market discount. Let's think about that for a second. When you hear the price of oil quoted every morning, You hear the price of oil, usually in Canada, we quote the WTI, West Texas Intermediate. That's not actually the oil that Canada sells. The oil we sell is quoted at the Western Canada Select price. Western Canada Select price has gone as low as $13 per barrel. West Texas Intermediate sitting at around $30 right now. 50% discount to the world price. Imagine what we are giving up in prosperity because of that discount. Imagine what governments are giving up in royalties because of that discount. And let's not forget one other thing here, which is that, and I think most people in Central and Eastern Canada don't know this, when you go to fill up your tank in this nation, this great oil nation, here in Central and Eastern Canada, you are actually not filling up your tank with Western Canadian Select. You're not filling it up with Canadian oil. You're filling it up with oil that costs $31 a barrel instead of $13 a barrel. And that oil has come on a freighter up the St. Lawrence Seaway from Venezuela or Saudi Arabia. It's come by pipeline to Montreal from Maine, or it's been transported by rail from the Balkans. So here in this great nation, we have not achieved energy independence. And building market access, particularly the Energy East pipeline, will actually not only reduce the market discount on Canadian energy, thereby having prosperity for every one of us, but it also makes sure that here in central Canada, you're actually benefiting from Canadian energy in many ways. We have to get Canadian energy to Tidewater. We have to do it. There is no choice for the prosperity of this nation but to make that happen. Because let's not forget, everything has changed. Sometimes I joke when I say that that resourcefulness that has allowed us to become so wealthy in this nation actually caused us great problems as well, because other people started using our technology. And so as a result, our biggest customer, in fact our only customer, the United States, is now our biggest competitor. You know, I promised the ambassador I wouldn't talk about the K word today, but I will. The debate about Keystone was about way more than climate change. It had a lot to do with the fact that it was made it easier to block out a key competitor from the United States, that being Canada. So we have now in our own hands the power to make a difference here. Our biggest customer, our only customer, is now our biggest competitor. We must find access to other markets because consumers around the world need energy. You can't do anti-poverty work without access to energy. You can't do global development without access to energy. Whether that's LNG or whether that's oil, we need to be able to provide energy around the world. And international customers need energy sources that are safe, reliable, and affordable. And we got those. Canada produces energy projects that are safe, that are reliable, that are affordable, that meet the most stringent regulatory standards for resource attraction and environmental compliance in the world, and that come with a healthy respect for human rights and fair labor laws. It is our opportunity to make change in the world, and we are allowing petty discussions between ourselves, preventing us from making that kind of difference in the world. We need to be fueling our own economy. Projects that are currently on the table and ready for construction in Eastern and Western Canada range in cost from $6 billion to $15 billion. Those are significant private sector investments in infrastructure. They have incredible spin-off right here. And yes, we need to talk about Energy East. We need to talk about Trans Mountain. And we need to figure out how to make these things work. Energy East alone will generate tax revenues for the federal and provincial governments in the range of $10 billion. 60% of that in what provinces? Ontario and Quebec. These are things that we have to really talk about. Energy East, according to the Conference Board of Canada, will directly and indirectly create 14,000 jobs over the 9-year development and construction phase alone. But you know what? Let's let the National Energy Board do its work. Let's let the science work. Let's use a rigorous science-based process. Let's strip emotion out of it and determine whether these things are in the best interest of the nation. I happen to believe they are. But let's let the National Energy Board do its work, and let's pledge to abide by the science here, to abide by the good science-based regulation. Of course we need to shift away from oil and gas. Of course we need to move to a low-carbon economy. No one is denying that. When I graduated from university some 20 years ago, I was a child prodigy, I was 9. Oil and gas was 50% of Calgary's economy. Since then, we've had hundreds of billions of dollars invested in Canadian energy, and now oil and gas is 30% of Calgary's economy. As a nation, we continue to diversify, we continue to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, but we're not quite there. And it's not a question of oil or no oil. We're going to need the oil for the foreseeable future. Leaving it in the ground is not a rational strategy. But we have to figure out the safest and most environmentally friendly way to be able to do that.